Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Sincerely Self Podcast. Our guest today is a midlife fitness expert, and she's also the podcast host of Pursue Your Spark, as well as an author. We are joined by Heike Yates today. Heike, thank you for joining us.
Lexi, I'm very excited to be on the show today, despite mic problems that are going up and down on here over here on my end.
Yeah, we're powering through the difficulties with podcasting setup sometimes. It just
Yep.
happens. So, for my audience that may not be familiar with you or your work, Heike, tell us about you and kind of your journey that led you to where you are now.
My name is Heike Yates. I'm originally born in Germany, and I've moved to the States about 40 years ago. And I've been a fitness coach almost just as long, and I keep saying 35 years, but it's by now 40 years. I've been here 43 years in the States, and I live on the East Coast of the United States in Maryland. And I fell into fitness, literally fell into it. Because back in the days, I did not know anything about fitness before my kids were born. I had no idea how to get in shape, or exercise was the furthest from my mind. And I was thinking, oh my God, these people all go to these classes, they hop around. I will never do this. This is just so not me. I go hiking, I go biking, I do all the things outdoors. And, but then fast forward, let's see, there was the first, I was 24 when I came to the States. So about 3 years later, I started, or actually less than that, 2 years later, I had met my first husband, got pregnant, and after the delivery, I still had 50 pounds. I gained 50 pounds, but I still had 30 pounds to lose from the weight that I gained. And I had no idea how to do this. And back then, just like I think even now, you have all these fad diets, but for somebody who really doesn't know anything about fitness or eating healthy, what does it even mean? Or, portion control or meal planning. None of that was anything that I ever given any thoughts. And so I stumbled with a friend of mine into a fitness class called Dancercise at the local YMCA here, and I was hooked. This was such an amazing, fun class with great community. There was dancing involved, of all things. Who does not like a class with dancing? Most women do, not all. And it was just so much fun, and I learned so much about my body. And as I became a teacher, it also became clear how much I can help other people that start out like I have. I have no idea what I'm doing. I just want to do something. And guided them through what I have learned. And that also projected me into the next step. Oh, if I know how to teach an aerobics class, I should learn how muscles work. How does that all work? How does it all function? Oh, I want to lose that baby weight and the baby fat. Well, how do I do that? I have no idea how to do that. You can read all the books, but somebody who's lived it and is your mentor is such a treasure to help you say, that may work, but how about we look at this for you specifically into those ways. And so I applied everything I've learned over the years to my own fitness journey. That at some point I thought, or actually it was my girlfriend, Rhonda. So, Rhonda, if you're listening to this episode, it was you who got me into bodybuilding. She said, oh, we both are personal trainers. Wouldn't it be amazing to help women build big muscles? Okay, most women don't want that. We didn't know that. We thought it was a great thing to
Yeah,
learn.
you're like, perfect.
It's the biggest humanly possible muscles on women's bodies. It didn't occur to us 40 years ago that this was probably not what women wanted, but that was Rhonda and I wanted.
Mhm.
But so we learned how to do that. And then I went through that phase and I said, okay, what else can I do? And then I started running again, pure coincidence through a client of mine that had a race ticket. She said, you run it for me. And I said, sure. Curiosity is a big thing in my life where I'm just curious about everything. So I became a marathon runner. That then learning how to run efficiently. So I became a certified running coach and I said, oh, there's more to learn. So now I can teach these people not only how to run better, but from my background as a trainer, we need to do strength training. We need to eat better nutrition. We need to focus on how we get the best training plan together with all of those things, stretching, mobility work. And back then, we were the only group, running group, we were called the 830s based on our speed we ran per mile. And people, the rest of the group looked at us and said, "Psst, look at them. They're stretching. This is dumb. Why would we stretch?" But then they kept looking, and my stretching portion of the class just got bigger and bigger until everybody else said, Heike is onto something. They seem to like it. And instead of just standing around, we stretched and chatted and finished our run that way. And so that then led me into ultra marathon running, which is above marathon. And then I decided I need to change things up. So I learned to swim, which there's a whole bunch of stories in between, of course. And I became an Ironman triathlete. And so that's how my journey evolved. And as I evolved in my sports, so did the groups I was working with. But also, I'm going to be 65 this year. The age group changed. I catered to women that were in their 40s, in their 30s, or in their 50s, and now at times in their 80s, where they start where I started or have the same questions I have, just in a different age bracket, and they have different needs and goals for what they want going forward in their age group, so to speak.
Yeah, I love, so a theme that I have on Sincerely Self that I discuss frequently is viewing the world as your teacher and always being willing to learn and willing to gain new experiences and new skills. And I feel like your story is such a testament to that and how it can just lead you to newer things and kind of push you out of your comfort zone in the way that you are so curious and so open to trying new things. You're not willing to limit yourself and think, oh, I could never do that, or oh, I don't know if I'd be good at that. You're just like, oh, this could be fun. Let's give this a try. Oh, let's see how I can try out this thing. And it is such a refreshing perspective because I think so many times, I'm sure some of our audience members relate to this. You want to try a new experience, but you have the lack mindset of maybe I could never pursue this. And so, what advice would you give for anyone who is like, oh, well, I'm in my mid 50s, my mid 40s, and I can't start over again. I can't try anything again. What advice
I
would you give them?
I like to rephrase that. I really don't like the let's start over again. The start over again to me means what I've done before was not any good. I didn't learn anything from that before. So now I need to start from scratch because everything else before that was worth nothing, which is not true. Because every time we try something, we learn something. It may be good, maybe not so good. We may never reach that goal. If you said, I want to run a marathon, and then it turns out that running may not be your jam and you just don't like these long distances, you haven't failed. Up on this point, you said, I learned about me, about my body, about my nutrition, about my mindset. Is that really what I want to do? Hours and hours of lonely running. Is it really something that lights me up? Or is it something that I just thought my girlfriend did, so I do it too? But we never start over. And I want women to really take this away from our conversation. You're never starting over. You're learning, you apply what you learned to the next thing that you want to tackle. That sounds really good to you. And take that with you because there's so many lessons we learn about ourselves, about perseverance, grit, about our preferences, our bodies, that it's never, oh, I start over.
Yeah, that's so true. Literally every experience we have up to the point that we're at now is building us into the next version that can handle what's coming next and what can come next. And so if we disregard everything that's happened before the point that we're at, we're losing all the skills and the experiences that we gained along the way. So I love that you bring that up because it may feel like we're starting over because we're trying something new, but really the version that you are now that you've built up to this point is the one that feels ready to try this new thing. And I love that you were saying, even if it's not your jam, even if it's not something that ends up working out, even the fact that you tried your hand at it is a win. Even that you went out of your comfort zone is a win.
Absolutely. And getting out of the comfort zone just shows how flexible you are. And I find as we get older and as keep working with those different age groups, people become less flexible, less willing to take a risk, are more afraid, feel more guilty for whatever reason. So it becomes harder and harder to pursue that spark in you if you're not working on that aspect of you don't have to be a daredevil. You don't have to do marathons and any crazy whatever adventures. It could simply be trying a new recipe. And I remember when my kids were little, I made loads, boatloads of lasagna because as a single mom, I had really no money and I had two kids to feed and I didn't have child support and alimony for a long time. So it was lots of pasta, lots of tomato sauce, lots of lasagna. And then after I got divorced and I remarried, my now husband is really a great chef. And he made all these fabulous things. And I said, I raised my kids. I've cooked for 18, 20 years. Now I'm off the hook. I don't have to cook anymore. Let him cook. And
Hmm.
that worked well for about a year or two. And then he got a job, not working from home, but had to go into the office. And that meant that he would drive long distance and that wouldn't come home till 7 p.m. So I would not say, hey, can you cook dinner now? I've been home all day working from home in my studio or virtually. And so I said, all right, I'm going to try a different strategy. And I did not want to go back to the lasagna days since I need to be more careful with carbs and have a different need for most women in midlife for the nutrition. And so I decided five five ingredients per recipe was my max. And I had to have all these ingredients at home and they all had to be healthy, higher on the protein side, lower on the carb side, lots of vegetables. And I am proud to say that after like 33 years now, I'm up to 10 ingredients on new
Wow.
recipes. So
Double the ingredients. That's
double the
awesome.
ingredients. And I'm not intimidated by the list of ingredients. And you can apply that idea to everything. Being intimidated by the gym and the people that are there and the equipment, being intimidated by the amount of ingredients in a recipe, anything along those lines. We need to work towards being more flexible and more daring, maybe.
Yeah, even like more adaptable, being put in situations that feel uncomfortable and unfamiliar, being able to be like, gonna start with five ingredients and work my way up and work my comfort zone up until I'm to the point where I feel excited to pursue this task or I feel excited to try this new thing and I look forward to it in a way.
Yep.
You have created the SPARC framework. So, for the audience that's not familiar with the SPARC framework, tell us a little bit about it and what it consists of.
As you guys have probably heard by now, everything for me is pursuing your spark. The podcast, my book, my brand, and my course, Pursue Your Spark Blueprint. And the blueprint came out of a lived experience, basically saying, I want to do something different. I want to ignite my spark. And the spark can be you can apply the spark to everything in your life because it is really a method and a system to number one, not start over. Number two, go go back through the framework if you feel stuck or get inspired by the framework. So let's maybe take the recipe as an example. The S would stand for scan. So I wanted to cook something different. I wanted to have a new recipe, but I wasn't sure what I could handle. And all the recipe books showed me all these fabulous things with ingredients I would never buy because I would never use them. So I had to really scan the recipes that I wanted to use that fit what I was willing to do at this point. Because I also believe that if you have to be willing and you have to be clear about what you want and what you don't want. So I didn't want recipe with 20 ingredients and exotic ingredients. I wanted something that I was able at this point, at this level to do. So you scan and you figure out, okay, I got this recipe, I'm going to do this. Now, the P stands for planning. So we're planning the recipe. Do I have all the ingredients? What do I need? What do I measure? What do I need to shop for? This would be the planning stage. And then the action stage in our recipe example is you cook the recipe. So you say, I got all the things together. Now let's make that recipe. And then there's always an R, which stands for roadblocks. You may have made too much tomato sauce because you had a lot left and you didn't really follow the recipe, or it burned and you don't know what happened. So you go back, you find out why it didn't quite work out like the recipe said it should, and it didn't look at all like what the picture said. And so you examine or you identify that roadblock and say, oh, I missed that step. Then you go back and you basically say, now I know what my roadblock is. Let's go and take that recipe and keeping momentum. Now I mastered that recipe and I can make this recipe 100 times over and it will always taste good. And then you can become adventurous and add more ingredients or play with it. But at any of those 5 steps, if you feel I didn't find the right recipe, go back and start with scanning. It may have not been your recipe. Go back and check out another recipe, give it another try, and then repeat the process. If you get stuck in the action part, what was the problem? You didn't have enough pots. You didn't allow enough time for the cooking phase that you needed. So really examine each step, and it's so beautiful because it really applies to everything that you do, whether it's sports, nutrition, your work. It's the same thing. When I had my book launch, one of the people that attended the book launch had just lost her job. And she says, I'm looking for a job. And she said, Heike, does your book apply to my situation? And I said, I can't give you a job. I cannot help you find a job. But if you look under roadblocks, you will find inspiration. You'll find stories and examples that may apply to what you need to do yourself, maybe through the interview process, maybe writing your resume, maybe how you show up at the interviews. And th- that's the beauty of the Spark work.
Yeah, that it's so available to be applied really in any aspect of your life. I also think it's so beautiful that spark, people associate it, you found your spark, you found almost like your true self and the things that really make you happy. And so the spark method really kind of leads you into that and leads you into being able to trust yourself again. And, if things don't work out, not being hard on yourself, but being able to say, okay, let me reflect, let me scan and look back and see where this may not be aligned with me, or maybe where I misstepped and I need to show up in a different way.
Absolutely. And oftentimes we refer to it in our industry as the why, and nobody wants to talk about the why.
Yeah.
That's like, oh, I have to really reveal myself and my needs. So I found that the scan is maybe a softer way to approach the why.
hmm Yeah, no, seriously. It's a more subtle way to start being able to uncover those layers and kind of like dive in because it really is something that is uncomfortable and maybe a little bit vulnerable for people to dive into because without diving in, it's really easy to fall into the lack mindset of, oh, well, I'm just not going to be able to do this, or this isn't something that I'm able to do, instead of maybe this is just not aligned with me. Instead of finding the faults in yourself, maybe the faults in the process that you took to get there.
Yeah, I agree.
So, the last thing that I kind of want to touch on today is if you guys are watching the YouTube or watching the video on Spotify, you can see there's a QR code for Heike's new book, Pursue Your Spark. You guys can scan that and then you'll be able to go see it. If not, I'll have it linked in the description. But tell us a little bit about Pursue Your Spark.
Pursue your spark. You know, when I branded my brand, Pursue Your Spark, I was not sure what to name it. I came up with all kinds of things. At first, it
Mhm.
was the menopause game plan. I said, this is this is what it's going to be. We're developing a game plan for menopause. But then I'm already, and let me also preface this. The book is for women in midlife. And just yesterday I talked to a client. I said, Heike, I'm 70. I'm not in midlife. And I had to say, I beg you pardon. Midlife starts at 40 in my mind and goes till 80. Women are living longer, are more adventurous, starting second and third careers in their 60s and 70s and 80s and beyond without fear. They keep moving forward. They're pursuing their spark for happiness and fulfillment, which is so important because back in the days, when I think my mom, when she retired, well, she didn't really start a second career. She kind of futzed around and she's 82 now. She's still not hasn't found that what's next. And it's not her fault. It's the generation she grew up in that didn't foster women's independence. Women go out and find new jobs. And so the spark represents that deep desire to be fulfilled, which whatever it is in your age, and my method also applies to somebody who's 20. What's now? What you're 20? What do you think you want from life right now? Or moms that kids go into the empty nest. What is your spark now? What is your fulfillment? And where do you see yourself? Not in 5 years and 10 years, the typical interview question, but where do you see yourself in life? Are you going back to when you were the young girl and you had all these dreams and you didn't fulfill those dreams? Whether it's cooking a recipe, knitting a pullover, or travel, I don't care. It doesn't really matter what it is. But does this light you up? Because I feel so many women dim their light instead of sparking bright. And that's what Pursue Your Spark is. Spark brightly.
Yes, absolutely. And I love that you say it is focused on midlife and really anyone can apply it. Like I'm in my 20s and I'm like I love absolutely everything about this. But I think in society there is just this pressure put on women once they reach 40 and go on that okay, well, if you had kids, your kids are moving out and you're retiring and that's it and that's all that there is left to it. But really that is such a good catalyst to find that spark again, rediscover the things that make you happy and kind of become your own person again because so many women get stuck in these titles that they hold for other people, mom,
Mhm.
daughter, wife, sister, and they forget who they are as they get older. And so if you are feeling that, if you're relating to this and you're listening to this episode, I really recommend Heike's book as well as her blueprint to kind of help you get out of this mindset.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. A little tidbit, the book was initiated by, because we're talking about midlife, the book was initiated by one of my clients who's 80 years old. She had taken a trip, which is also a story in the book, to visit her daughter, and she had been in the middle with her husband's really ill, and she was just bogged down. You know, the situation we have in certain age groups. It's the grandkids, it's the parent. We don't know where to fit in. And she took a trip to visit her daughter. Name and location have been changed, as she smilingly pointed out. Uh, and she came back, she walked into the studio and she says, Heike, I feel like myself again. And I said, well, what do you mean? She said, I was unburdened. I could do what I wanted to do when I wanted to do it. And I felt so light and I felt so free. And I said, you just gave me the content for my book.
I think it's so beautiful. It's based off of someone who really came to you as well and was just like, you've changed my life. And someone who, being 80 years old, people try and tell you at that point that there is no trying anything new. There is no, trying to get out of that comfort zone. And for her to be able to come to you and say, you've like awakened this light in me, this spark in me.
Yeah.
And now you're able to use her story to help so many other women who may be feeling that same thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Heike, for joining us today. Like I said, if you're watching the video, you can scan for her book right now. If not, I will have all of her information in the show notes of this show so that you can go and check her out. But I will see you guys next week. Thank you, Heike.
Thank you, Lexi. I appreciate you.